This is Diane Scott from the Best Boss podcast, and I'm honored to be here today with Elke Reichart, who is the current Chief Digital and Sustainability Officer at Infineon Technologies. It's a global semiconductor leader, actually, in power systems. Did I get that right, Elke?
Yep. Yeah.
Good, good. But prior to that, she was Chief Digital Officer at TUI Group, and she was responsible for the TUI Group's digitization strategy, and among other things as well. She also did many years at Hewlett Packard, and including the Vice President of Strategy and Planning in their headquarters in Palo Alto. So welcome, Elke.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Diane.
Yeah, we've known each other for a while, and I'm really honored to have met you. And when I was first journeying into this Best Boss podcast, one of the things that I thought about is how hard it is to get to the top levels of an organization, which you are at Infineon, and to have the qualities of the best boss in terms of leadership and helping other people's grow as a way to get your outcomes. And talk to me a little bit about that journey as a leader for you. How was that?
Yeah, I had the privilege and pleasure to be given a leadership role pretty early in my career. I was 3 years in HP when I was first promoted to a people manager, and then uh, it really grew in size, in internationality, in complexity, so that it really gave me good possibility to grow, step by step. Also, having had great leaders myself, from which I could learn, I think it was a really good mix. HP invested a lot in leadership trainings, but of course, the most you learn in the role itself, again, with great role models as managers I worked for, and quite honestly, also by making mistakes and learning from them as fast as possible.
Over the years that I've talked with you, we talked a lot about how you get success. And you talked to me about wanting to be known as a good team developer, structurer, and working with the team. You are absolutely partially responsible for my journey into looking at best bosses as a means for rethinking, redesigning leadership. When did you first discover, or tell me about your theory? And one of the theories that you often mention is management as a service. Tell me a little bit about that, what that means for you.
Yeah, yeah. Having been in the tech world, there still is, a trend in the tech world that everything becomes a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service. And therefore, I thought, being in my tech was, so probably we should also think about leadership as a service. And I got that feedback over the past. Over the years when I was working, I often got the feedback, in be it in employee surveys, but also in individual one-to-ones, that people said we really want, to work in your team. We want to be part of that journey, and how powerful that really is. That we could really move mountains with the team, with the motivation of the team. So over time, of course, the bigger and bigger your team grows, I realized that my biggest asset I have is to untap the potential of the team, because the multiplying effect is so big, and that it's not so much about optimizing myself. Of course, I still want to improve myself each and every day, but the biggest lever I have is really untap the possibility and the talent of the many people reporting into me. And when I saw, what momentum and what power and what drive we develop together, and the team, then also a lot of ideas coming up from the team, and how much faster that made us over time. That's when I realized, my I'm here, to serve the people. I'm here for my team. It's not the other way around. What is a bit sometimes still the traditional aspect, that the team is here to make me look good, to make me successful. I saw it's actually, by turning my attention to the team, to make my team successful. Interesting enough, that also helps me indeed as a consequence of that to become more successful. But I turned the cause and effect around, and I said, for me it's really clear, I'm here to make my team successful and the individual members on the team successful.
So the outcomes were more about their success and therefore your success versus your success via them.
Exactly.
Flipped.
Yeah.
How did that look like? Like, give me an example of some of the things that you did. Like, what,
Yeah, I think
elusive a little bit.
I think what also the feedback I get, I often talk about, when I talk about management as a service, it has to do, bring in your head and your heart and your hand. So the head is that I always give very clear visibility where we want to go. Setting the direction, setting the strategy, so that people can really make a very conscious and informed decision. Do they want to be part of that journey or not? And what is in for them being part of that journey? And then the other thing, the hard part is really listening to them, being there for them, understanding what is their intrinsic motivation. It's really something.
Do you ask them that, or do you observe?
I ask them
both?
I ask them that. I observe, of course, a lot of it, but I also ask them, what is their favorite part of the job? What is their least favorite part of the job? To more and more understand, what their intrinsic motivation is. And then, of course, I'm also a big believer of strength-based leadership, to really find the areas of strength of the people and put them on jobs where they can absolutely show their strength.
It's interesting. So like, you find out what they value and you find out what their strengths are. Sometimes it's different,
It can be different. Yeah.
And you work off of both of those aspects.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why also I spend more time now. That is also something I learned over the past. I spend more time trying to better understand the whole person, their private lives, etc. To your point, to understand their value system, what is important to them, what drives them, what are their red buttons. I spend more time than I did in the past, in my earlier years as leadership. And then the last, but certainly not least, the hand part, of course, you also need to do something for them. And most importantly, what they need, that you remove obstacles when they need, that you are there for them. I also always make sure, if there is an escalation, people can get hold of me very fast. That I keep, flexibility in my agenda to, if people need to see me at short notice, we find a slot. It's not that they get pushed out 3 weeks in my calendar. And I think once people see, of course, they watch you in action. Actions speak louder than words.
It really does. Yeah.
But when they see you actually really, you're doing what you're saying, and you are removing obstacles, you are following the things you said, your direction, etc., then that builds trust, and this then again unleashes their potential.
Has this approach, and I'm going to call it management as a service approach, has this approach ever been an obstacle with your peers or with an organization? Without specifics, has it ever gotten in the way?
I think what I've observed, that peers, when they saw me or heard me talk about it, they were like, they were skeptical. I think nobody tried to talk me out of that, but they were clearly skeptical about that, and would probably clearly were not willing to copy that. But I think what I got as feedback also from peers who were pretty skeptical said, as you mentioned, the outcome says, wow, you achieved, really, we can see the outcome you generate with that, and the buy-in from the people. We clearly can't ignore that, even if it's perhaps a bit surprising for us to see that with this style,
So if you
which is
were,
often described as a friendly style, and for some people it doesn't go together. Being a leader and being a friendly person doesn't go together for
we
other
talk a
leaders.
lot about the likability factor in terms of a leader. And there's an old saying in America that says, I'd rather be respected than liked. And I always say it's a heck of a lot easier to get respect if they like you. So why would you not
Yeah,
want to be liked?
absolutely.
Why would you
Yeah.
not? That's not a good goal, not to be liked, to gain for respect. So how do you get your leaders to do the same thing? How does this trickle down?
Yeah, by talking about it, what does it really mean? By that, I explain the concept to them. Of course, I then also observe them in their leadership situations and give them feedback.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's obviously that's probably the most thing. By talking about, people are very interesting. I think that is sometimes it helps. It took me a while to put a name around it, and since I talked about it, management as a service, then because then people are, what is that? I called it MaaS, management as a service, and then people get curious, what is that? Talk to us about that. It really helps to put a name to it. That's something I realized over time.
Interesting. And then it becomes a thing versus just
Exactly.
an idea. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
product. Yeah, well done.
Exactly.
Let me ask you, who's your best boss?
Yeah. Now that you ask me the question, the person that comes to my mind is somebody. I think. Let me just. Was my third manager. My third
You don't need to
manager.
give the name.
Yeah. My third manager in my career, and what made him the manager I still probably remember most, that he signaled me early on, after just a few weeks working together, when I worked for him. He signaled me that um, he sees great leadership potential, and which was surprising to me, how fast that feedback came, and that he said, I want to invest in you, and he offered me to shadow him a lot,
Oh,
which was really amazing. And I was very young still, I was 2 years or so
wow.
at work, and somebody, and of course it took away from I had my clear area of responsibility as an individual contributor, and then he asked me to join him for meetings where I had, in practice, nothing to do, to be honest. And it was not even about my area of responsibility, just the shadowing part of it. So it was, on the one hand, I remember sometimes quite stretching for me because I had a lot of work to do, but of course, the offer was too good to be turned down. To not do it, and I learned a lot from him. I learned also some things where I said I wouldn't have done what he has done, but it was still interesting to watch. Yeah. And that's somebody who invests so much in you, who gives you so much trust. That was also for me very inspiring. And something, yeah, I also then really tried to replicate in the future as well, because I remembered how much it meant to me and how much it helped me.
What's interesting is I'm doing a lot of research now on this topic, and I ask people who their best boss is. What has surprised me is how many people go to very early on in their career, almost like a pivotal leader that saw something in them that they didn't see themselves.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And he
Yeah.
promoted me then to my first people leadership role, etc. So you probably, yeah, now listening to you, it's probably not surprising many people refer to somebody early on because they are so pivotal, for to just get your career started.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to find him early in my
I have a
career.
CEO who says that his best boss was his manager at Pizza Hut when he was 17, who promoted him. And like, just to hear him, it literally set him on that journey. And on a side note, it's because I know this part about you. You've served, and a lot of my listeners are very interested in this. You have served as a paid board member for for-profit companies for the past 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
If I was thinking about doing that, what advice would you give me?
The first one is always the toughest. The first one I got a bit more than 6 years ago. And then the others came, more quickly afterwards. So I think it took me a while to be honest, since making the decision, I would like to serve on a board in addition to my regular job. And then by the time I got really a first interesting offer. So what I did and what the advice I also give I shared my wish, my desire to serve on a board with many, many people. So I think you can't. That's really what I would recommend everyone to do. Tell everyone in your network, that you are interested, you have the capacity, you are interested in that. Also, make it very specific on what topic, do you want to. In what do you want to join a board for? Your financial background, for your technology background, for legal, whatever your expertise is, for your ESG, or whatever your preference and your expertise is, so that people really have that specifically in mind. And whenever they get contacted and they hear serendipity, they hear about something, they remember you.
Yeah. And then after that, after you had that history and that track record, more frequently people would come to you.
That's that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Yeah. Once, and then everybody says, yeah, and we like it that you already have board experience. So this is what I say, but you need to. The first one is really the toughest.
But putting it out to your, like, it's almost like you have to find what your offering is.
Yes.
And then put it out there.
Yes. Yeah. So
and
don't put it out too generic. I want to join a board.
Oh,
I think
very
I
good
would.
point.
So my brand pretty well. She had technology background, has done a lot of transformations. So that was so technology transformations was, I think, the tagline people had had in their head about me. And also that was to be honest, also the reasons, or a bit the assignments, or the reasons why I joined the boards I joined, and why I was contacted for the boards I got offered.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, is why do you actually want to do it? I mean, it's interesting work where you can be almost above the fray, but very important part of it. It's interesting work, especially at a part of your career when you have so much to offer, but not necessarily as an employee role. But as a section role, it almost gives it an air of the ability to look above the situation, a clarity almost.
Exactly. And I must say, also now being again in a full-time, role, executive role, I learned so much. I learned so much from this board role for my operational, and or now for my executive role, because you have to be more on a strategic level. I learned more about strategy. Also, I of course I could watch now executives, and I could see it from a different position. What is resonating with the board? What is good behavior towards the board? What is perhaps a less productive behavior towards the board? Very interesting to be, having to look at it from the different positions. What helps me now also in, again, being now in an executive role again.
It's like giving and giving back. So hey, thank you for that, because so many people are asking me about that, but it really, it clarifies, like, there's a lot to be gained, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a learning aspect as well,
Absolutely.
and so it's good.
Absolutely. And I think that's also how I picked a bit the roles. Can I contribute? Of course, of course you want, but also can I learn something new from me, a new industry, a new geography, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much. Anything else on being, and any last bit of advice for the listeners about being a best boss?
Yeah, I think you can sum it up by you need to love people. You need to love working with people,
Mm,
um, because it's so hard to predict what happens. You build a team, then something happens, somebody disappears from the team, or so it's a constant thing. You have to be prepared to many things might change, or things might not work out as planned, or something happens in their private lives which has nothing to do with their professional lives, but still affects the professional life, of course.
mm,
So
mm.
there's only so much when it comes to people. There's so much you can plan, but then things might also work out
Yeah.
otherwise. And to live with this constant change, and that constant evolution, you really need to have a passion for doing that,
For the
and love
people.
people, and be genuinely interested in people, and caring about the development of people.
It's an honor to talk with you, because somebody who has um, that genuine caring, um, uh, curiosity, caring, and desire to assist people as a way that you got to the top level of your organization, top is the one of the highest C-suite level of your organization. It's admirable, and it's an honor to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Diane, for having me, and for having been part of my journey for so
Um,
many years.
it's
With
been
so
it's
many
been
good
incredible.
advices, and thanks so much.
Yeah, it's been great. Hey, good talking to you, and thank you. This is Diane, and this is the Best Boss Podcast.